Hello, good evening, everybody. This is Dayna Martin, and this show is Try This at Home. It is your source for unschooling, peaceful parenting, and freedom-based living information on UCY Radio. I'm happy to be with you. This week's been a busy week for my family, as it always is. We've put a lot more planning into the Life Rocks Conference, our annual event. It's in its fourth year this year. It's an unschooling conference in the Northeast and New Hampshire. And we have Dr. Peter Gray, coming and speaking this year. You'll have to look into it. It's going to be an awesome event. It's liferocksconference.com. And I just actually booked a great reggae band for the first night. So it's kind of a festival / conference / vacation. And it's just so great to come together with like-minded people. Anyone that attends any kind of event based on their passions or interests or beliefs, it always just feels like you're on the right path when you can connect with others. I guess you could say, in Madison, New Hampshire. And it's a pretty progressive area, but, it can kind of get lonely. There's a lot of other homeschoolers, but no other unschoolers that I know of in this area. So I love just inviting a ton of people up. Not only does it support my local economy, but it is fabulous to bring people together in this area. We live in a gorgeous vacation destination, and we'd love to meet you. So connect with me online, and I'll give you some more information about it. Devin's in Vermont. Devin, my son, he's almost 15. He's going to be 15 on the 19th. I can't believe it. It seems like I just gave birth to him, I swear. It feels, time just flies. Everybody says that when they have kids, but it really does. It's amazing. And it's such a short season in your life that your kids are young. I can't even imagine what our lives would have been like if our kids were in school. None of my kids have ever been to school, not even one day. When we were on Wife Swap, they were in like an alternative school for 40 minutes, just really for the sake of the show. And they were in a room with just my husband and a teacher. But that wasn't even like a real school experience. But other than that, they've never shown any desire at all to go to school. And their freedom is so important to me. I don't see any child that would make the choice to go be put in a situation where they're in the authoritarian paradigm. I mean, I really think if a child chooses school, that is one, it's a little different than a child being forced to go to school. But even so, if a child is choosing a situation where something's mimicked like prison, like in a public school situation, or even a lot of private schools. I mean, even though like other educational methods like Montessori or Waldorf are more naturally minded, there's still forced learning. It's still the same exact premise, just a different curriculum. So I definitely think that schools like Waldorf were more open-minded and a little bit more freedom-based, but there's still strong beliefs in a dogmatic approach. Things are looked down on, like any kind of media or technology. I really love the aesthetics of Waldorf education, but generally, if a child does not want to be there, it's going to be just as damaging as any other situation. So Devin's in Vermont with his friend, who's also an unschooled teen. He's 16. His name is Zan. He's Devin's best friend. They've known each other since they were really young. And what they're doing, while most kids are in school, what Devin and Zan are doing is building an outdoor basket hut. It's this huge hut. They're building their own survival shelter in the middle of the forest, and they plan on sleeping in it and camping out there and surviving off the land. My friend Joshua lives on some beautiful property. And Devin's out there right now doing that. And it's really interesting with unschoolers because, how I grew up, you'd go and have a sleepover. You'd go and hang out with your friends and spend like a night or two. In my experience with my own unschooled kids, they spend a lot of time with their friends, like huge chunks of time. So Devin's there for maybe a week or two. I think it's been about a week and a half that he's been there, maybe 2 weeks now. And they're having a great time. He learned how to do some pottery. He sent me a message with a photo. Those of you that are friends with me on Facebook, I always post photos of what my kids are doing. Be sure to friend me on there. Subscribe to my page because it's really inspiring, I think, for people to just see what our everyday life looks like. And I try throughout the week, to post pictures of just giving people a glimpse of what our life looks like. So, Devin learned pottery. So now, like, he wants a pottery wheel. Devin all my kids, actually, Devin and Tiff are really excited when they're introduced to something. They want all the resources and tools to be able to nurture that interest and passion. So as an unschooling parent, I'm not my child's teacher. It's not a traditional role, a traditional homeschooling role. I'm not their teacher standing in front of them, pouring knowledge into them. I facilitate their learning. So it's really hands-on, and it's very involved. It's not what a lot of people think unschooling is, which is really hands-off or unparenting. No. Unschooling is not for the lazy parent. So Devin sends me a message. For my birthday, I want a pottery wheel. I love pottery, and I would love a wheel. So I've been researching on eBay and looking around for a pottery wheel. They're not cheap. They are not cheap, but I know I can get one. That's the whole thing. I think it's so important to model for your kids that whatever you want in life you can have, and money is not the only way to get what you want. I think a lot of traditional, conventional parenting approaches that are authoritarian in nature and that are kind of repeating the way that they were raised, your child asks you for something and all you see is the dollar signs. And if it's really expensive, you just shut down. Like, nope, no way. It's not going to happen. My kids know that they can have whatever they want, and money is only one way to get what they want. So I just put it out there like, well, we'll get a pottery wheel. We will get one. I don't know how we'll get our hands on it, but I will research Craigslist. I'll research eBay. I know if I put enough hands out, asking for resources, that people will point me in the right direction, and I know one will come into our life. Everything Devin has needed has been provided. So it's a matter of just trusting the process, and I know we're going to get provided for some way, shape, or form. So anyway, pottery wheel, that's next on the agenda. Now, I took a pottery class. It's really hard, actually. I can't say I liked it very much. I thought it would be so easy. I was really bad at it, though. So I was trying to make the bowl, and it ended up falling apart. So my teacher was so sweet. She's like, it can be a plate. Don't worry about it. You'll make a plate. Well, I couldn't even make a plate. The rim of the plate didn't work. So she just was still so positive and said, you can have a trivet. You'll have a beautiful trivet. So I had a wonderful pottery teacher, and I made a wonderful trivet. I did end up coming out with some bowls after a couple weeks, but I would love to. I see the pottery that Devin's made. At least I'm like, how the heck did he do that without a class? Because I know it was so hard for me. But I'll tell you, when you have a supportive, just mentor, my friend Joshua does pottery. She's awesome at it. And she just mentored him, and he learned from having her in her life. So never underestimate the power of mentorship, apprenticeship. I found this great resource locally for bushcraft. Now, it's something Devin's always been interested in, and somebody told me about it. I guess the guy that runs this particular bushcraft school is one of the people that help the show Naked and Afraid. Have you seen that? My family enjoys that show. It's crazy. I can't ever imagine doing what they do on that show, but he's like one of the people that advise the people that are on that show. So he's pretty renowned, I guess. And Devin's interested in possibly being an apprentice to this guy. So I need to facilitate that and look into it, contact the guy, find out what is required. But people generally don't think of the different alternative ways that people can learn. They just think they need to be spoon-fed information from a book, and that testing and quizzing kids is the way to go for testing their knowledge. But I love to look at the resources of mentorships, apprenticeship situations, because my kids love hands-on learning. And you'd be so surprised with how many people you can just ask to. People love to share their passions. They love to, generally, if someone's passionate about something, they're honored to be asked to mentor somebody. So reach out. If your kids are interested in something, contact someone who is passionate about it and has different skills. And you know what? It's a really affordable way. Generally, you don't have to pay a lot of times. So that people just want to help for the sake of helping. So I'm putting it out there to the universe that we are looking for a pottery wheel, and I know that we will have one by Devin's birthday somehow. I took my girls, so Devin's in Vermont. I took Ivy and Tiffany, my 12 and 9-year-old, to an event called Veg Fest. It's in Worcester. My daughter Tiffany's a vegan and has been for years, and I am myself also. So we went to this event called Veg Fest. It was really wild. It was huge. I've never been to this particular event. It's in its third year in Worcester, Massachusetts. We drove down 3 hours, and it was great. They had so many different. They had this vegan Chinese food, and I swear you could not tell the difference between the vegan version. I don't know how healthy it was. I mean, it was all deep fried, but it was so good. Tiffany got a couple cool t-shirts. They had a bunch of different vendors. She got a t-shirt that says, I love vegan boys. She's 12 and she's hitting that age. She loves, she's really starting to get interested in boys, which is great and natural and all that good stuff. But her t-shirt says, I love vegan boys. And then she got a t-shirt, which would probably be pretty controversial. I don't think most parents would allow their child to wear it. But I totally support my kids, and foul language does not offend me. My children have complete freedom of speech, so that includes swears. My children know when it's appropriate to swear and when it's not. We talk about those things, but they do have freedom in their everyday lives to swear, just like I do. I think it's kind of one of those moral issues. If you swear yourself, it's so hypocritical to tell your child not to swear. It's a double standard. Do as I say, not as I do. That does not fly in my family. I don't believe in that. So because I swear, not like a sailor. I swear sometimes to accentuate, certain things, or if I get upset, but not all that often. Joe, on the other hand, he's more of the dropping the F-bomb here and there. But anyway, the t-shirt that I got Tiffany, on the front it says, it's okay to give a fuck. And on the back it says, go vegan. So she really likes the shirt. I'm sure when she wears it out, I gave her the information that you might raise a couple eyebrows wearing a shirt like that in public, but she's comfortable with it. So that is what she is doing. And let's see. Yeah, it was kind of cool. I saw a couple of people that are followers that follow my work, that know who I am. And I got a couple photos with some people that wanted them. So that was kind of neat. And we just enjoyed half a day there. And I saw my friend Christina, who was volunteering down there. And let's see. So on the show tonight, I have a couple people calling in. I'm a parenting coach. It's one of the things that I've really, really focused on in the last year or two. I've been a parenting consultant or parenting coach on some level for 10 years. I've been a childbirth educator, longer than 10 years now. I'd say it's been about 12 years. So the Leche League leader, which is a breastfeeding counselor, and I really got a lot of my training through that program. It's an awesome program. And I've just been extending it as my kids have grown and my interests have grown. So I'm a parenting coach now for Peaceful Parenting and Unschooling. And I have a really big parenting coaching practice. I have calls every single day, sometimes a couple a day. And I thought it might be great to offer free parenting coaching through this radio show tonight. I have a couple people that are supposed to call in today. So I'll just chat with you until they do call. I think I have 3 parents lined up to give me a ring here, and we'll add them to the call, and we will go from there. So let me see here. Let me just check. Yeah, I have one person waiting to call. Let me just write her back and let her know go ahead to call again. I'm still learning how to use the whole UCY TV Skype / program. I'm learning as I go here. I haven't had too many technical glitches, but I think tonight will flow totally fine. But yeah, I put it out there on my Facebook page that I was taking parenting coaching and calls tonight, and I got 35 different messages. So here's my first call of the evening. Hey, Elizabeth, this is Dayna. Can you hear me? I think Elizabeth, she is added to the call here, and she's going to unmute her microphone. It says there's a problem with the call. I don't know if something's tweaky with the internet or what's going on. So she's going to try to call back. I chatted with her briefly this morning about what we talk about, but I really want it to flow authentically. I find that the best conversations that I have with people are ones that just kind of flow authentically. I want you guys just to hear how a coaching call goes and how helping people understand peaceful parenting. How do you support somebody with this kind of philosophy? So hold on one second. Let me try to get her back. Hello, Nicole, you there?
Hi, Dayna, I'm here.
Hi. Sorry about that. We had a little technical issue. I'm glad you could join us on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks to all my listeners for hanging in there through those technical issues. So, Nicole, thank you again for calling. Like, how can I help you with what you're dealing with today? So, just tell me, lay a little groundwork for the listeners. So, you're a parent striving to incorporate more peaceful parenting dynamics into your home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am. And my husband and I are having we're seeing our parenting roles a little differently. He has more of an authoritarian approach, and I'm trying to do more of a partnership, peaceful parenting approach. So we've been having some issues in that aspect.
Yeah, I find that to be really common. One parent or the other seems to be kind of a little further down the path and desiring a more peaceful parenting connection. And it really becomes challenging because you're learning this philosophical perspective of respect and focusing on everyone's needs. So what do you do when your partner is not on the same page? How has it been for you?
It's been really up and down, really. I've kind of respected how he parents, and he respects how I parent, and we've had a few negative vibes between us when certain situations come up, but we try and talk him through, and he really does listen to where I'm coming from, and I try and listen to where he's coming from because it was how he was raised and brought up as well. So we try to agree. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree, but we're getting there.
I think a lot of people, when they first learn about this philosophy, it makes so much sense to them. And all of a sudden, it's like this veil is lifted, and they start to see abuse and injustice all around them. They start to see it from people in the store. They see it from friends. And it's really shocking for people, I think, when they first see how disrespected children generally are. You know, when obedience is the focus and control and focusing on behavior is the main focus of parenting and in the conventional approach, when parents like you are introduced to a whole partnership parenting, peaceful parenting paradigm, it's so awesome. However, you're seeing the injustice and abuse from people that you love. So how do you share this information without forced learning? Because if your partner doesn't want to learn about it, you can't force them. It goes against this philosophy. You know, it's so hypocritical to start criticizing and trying to control him into peaceful parenting. And so when you see him treating the kids in a less than respectful way, how have you approached it recently?
That was actually one of the questions that I had for you was what would be the best in terms of when to approach it. When we do approach it, I try not to do it in front of the children just because I don't want him to get upset with me or, get upset and them see it. But when I talk to him about it, I just try and encourage him. I feel like he's seeing a change in their behavior from more of the peaceful parenting approach, and I just want to remind him that it is beneficial and that I do see it and I know he does, and if we could just work on it together and go from there.
Well, I know there's such a transition for people, and everybody comes at it through their own way of getting there. I know for me, for years, I would get so upset with Joe if he was raising his voice or treating the kids less than respectfully. It was really hard. I did try to control him into peaceful parenting. I mean, that's just so hypocritical, but that's normal. You know, the way that I've handled it in the past is I want him to have the freedom to parent his kids in the way that feels best to him. So for me to just breathe, and sometimes I've had to step out of the room, and it's not even the average conventional person would not even see it as abuse or injustice at all. However, I sometimes see him, if the kids are fighting, he might be stop fighting, for example. And I really want him to help them focus on the needs instead of the behavior, where if he's working, see, we work at home, so it's this whole different dynamic. If he's trying to work and the kids are fighting, he sometimes focuses on behavior and not what their needs are. So I feel like I want to tell him in my enlightened approach. I'd like to think I am at times, which is I just need to kick myself down off this pedestal sometimes and just get real and just I try to help the kids with their needs and also focus on the needs under Joe's behavior. So if Joe's reacting and really uncomfortable with what the kids are doing if they're yelling at each other. And he like then says, guys, can you be quiet, stop? Instead of getting upset with him, I try to focus on his needs too and meet him in partnership. So in whatever your husband's doing at the time, how can you help meet his needs under whatever behavior he's using with the kids? So it's kind of extending the approach from focusing, on the kids' needs to doing the same with your husband and opening your heart to understanding that I do think this is sometimes harder for men, not every man. I mean, I know a lot of anarchists and libertarians that have come to this life. Very oftentimes the guys are so much more onto this philosophical perspective than the wives, but generally through an attachment parenting filter, oftentimes it's the women. So when my husband, I think Devin was maybe 2 years old, and I started talking about Alfie Cohen's unconditional parenting, the non-punishment perspective, and he said that he felt kind of gypped. He said, I totally get it. I get this philosophy, but my whole life I had to obey. My whole life I had to do what all the adults around me told me to do. And I thought once I was a parent, it was finally my turn. And here you're telling me, no, we're not doing it that way. And he said, I get it. I want my kids to have the best. I love Devin. I don't want to punish him. I understand. But it kind of sucks. When is it going to be my turn?
Mm-hmm.
So, opening your heart to understanding whatever your husband's going through and helping him get what he wants and needs in life in the same way you would the kids. No double standard. And it's through that peaceful communication that you're really modeling for your husband how to live more peacefully.
Yeah, I've it's definitely taken a lot of patience for me. Like I've had to leave the room just because I don't want to be like, no, you don't threaten them with spanking them, or don't raise your voice because they're crying because there's something that's not right. Kids don't just stand there and cry. There's a reason why they're crying, and they're not able to control their emotions like adults are. Or, adults can't always control them, but they sure have a lot more control of them. And I just have to kind of remind them, and I don't want to do it in front of the kids because I don't want it to seem like I'm putting him down in front of the kids, if that makes sense.
Right. I mean, I think there's definitely, I think different people would give you different advice. I think spanking is definitely crosses the line for a lot of people. A lot of people see that as physical abuse, and they would not tolerate that happening. Like, I've known parents to just be like, no, that's not going down. I'm sorry. I can't support you hitting our kids. Like, that would never happen in our home. I would just totally, as peacefully as I could. I mean, Joe's never hit the kids, but that would not be an option. I would stand there and say, no, that's not going to happen. But I know not everybody is in that position, so I want to meet people where they're at. So you've come in it from a different filter. You've come from a different angle, and your husband, if he still uses punitive techniques, I'm sure it is hard knowing what you know. Is it okay to talk to him? Mm-hmm. Have you shared with him how inappropriate it is for him to hit the kids? And does he not agree, obviously?
He doesn't, spanking is something that we, like, he expects kind of the kids to, listen to us. Like, if I need them to, stop smacking stop smacking each other, and I'm like, can you guys please stop that? I don't want anyone to get hurt. He's like more of the, if you don't listen to your mom, you're going to get a spanking. But it's very rare that he actually would ever follow through with it. It's more of like a threat. But then I see it like, that's just scaring the kids. That's not understanding them. It's almost putting fear into them, and that's what I don't like. Right,
and I'm sure you're aware of the fact that to hit kids for hitting is like the ultimate in hypocrisy. Anyway,
exactly. Yeah.
And to threaten a child with violence for using violence. I mean, children learn what they live, and they learn through how you are in this world. So I think it could be really helpful to have a heart-to-heart conversation. I've had coaching calls with dads with moms that are really concerned about this and kind of introducing that concept. So, I mean, one idea you could do is like just ask if you'd be open to learning and evolving about spanking and learning some alternatives, because oftentimes people don't know what to do instead. Mm-hmm. Now, offering resources and tools instead could be really helpful, like what to do instead of spanking. There's a great site called the Natural Child Project, and it gives alternatives to punishment. I mean, I've focused on that on the show before. I've read articles about alternatives to punishment. So maybe just seeing if he, and inviting him in, like it's all dialogue on how you interact with him and saying, would you be open to hearing alternatives to punishment? Because I know it's kind of all we've done and maybe all you know, but would you be open to learning some alternatives and trying them out and seeing how they work? Instead of like telling your partner or coming at it through an authoritarian dynamic. I mean, if you come at it like you versus him, most guys are going to resist that instantly and just be like, no, it's going to be my way. If you just invite him in and say, hey, would you be open? Because I'm using some tools and tips that don't include punishment, that don't include spanking or threatening, and they're working really well to meet everybody's needs, and we're so much more peaceful. And I'd love for you to be able to feel that peace because, conventional authoritarian parenting is not rewarding. It's not joyful at all. It's really negative, actually. It's not fun to control somebody else all day, and punishing does not feel good. So, parents generally think parenting is so hard, and people dread coming home to the kids because they think that the only alternative they have is to punish and control, and it just is really against our human nature. Most of us have been really conditioned to be controlled, and most of us were punished, but deep down, nobody wants to parent that way. So if you could say to your husband, hey, how would you like to do something a lot more joyful and a lot more, beneficial to the kids, would he be open to that?
I think he would, because often when I'm in bed, I watch your YouTube videos, and I make sure he can hear them. And so, sorry, he's always listening in. Like, he's like, oh, are you listening to Dayna Martin again? So he's aware of, you and your philosophy, like how you do things and what you're encouraging others to do. And so he's well aware of it, and he's interested in it. It's not like he ignores it or turns it off or asks me to leave the room. He's actually listening. So I think that inside he wants to. I think it's almost like a habit because it's all he's ever known.
That their partners don't want them to be punitive or mean or punish the kids. But they don't really know how to connect before it gets to that point. So it's kind of like they're really hands-off. They let things go and go and go and go without kind of being in tune as things are starting to escalate. And so they just say, okay, my wife's going to get mad if I try to do anything, so I'm just going to let the kids go. So they go from like kind of unparenting and being extremely permissive to things getting so extreme that they snap. They just don't know anything else to do but flip it. Okay, guys, that's enough. So it's like from permissiveness to extreme punitive so one thing I love to help dads with is really be in tune with the kids, and when things are starting to go in that direction, how can you connect with them? Like, you got to just break away from what you're doing as dads, whether you're on the computer or whatever you're involved in. You have to be in tune with your kids, and that has to be priority. So if things start to escalate, be really in tune and be like, how can I help you guys? Like, Joe has gotten amazingly awesome at like kind of knowing, like Ivy and Orion lately have been starting to like fight a lot more now that Orion's older. So, but you can always kind of feel when things are going in that direction. They'll be playing Minecraft together or something. And isn't it amazing how kids can fight like while playing an online game in the same room? I don't know if you've experienced that yet, Nicole, but
no.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't. We've actually been cooped up in our house sick, all of us. And my friend came and took our youngest today just for, I think it was like 4 hours just to separate them. Because it didn't matter what I did, what approach I took, they were just going at each other. So, and then when our youngest came back, then her older sister was like, I want her to come home, let's play, and she was really looking forward to it. So I think that break, I think they just needed that break from each other. They love each other and they like to play with each other, but being trapped in a house sick for 2 weeks is a little much for their little energetic butt.
Yeah, it's been such a long winter for so many of us, hasn't it? It's been long. We're all kind of have colds for the first time in, oh my gosh, years, because now that Ivy's taking gymnastics and Tiffany's taking a dance class, we're exposed to like so many other kids, and we all have colds and cooped up in the house. So once spring comes and we can get outside and everybody can run, if you're a parent listening and you feel like your kids are going at it, fighting a lot, just know that we're all kind of dealing with it. Cabin fever is really at the tail end here. And also keep in mind that kids fight half the time and they get along half the time, siblings. It's normal. The book Siblings Without Rivalry you should get that book if you have siblings that are fighting, because Siblings Without Rivalry, I read it when Devin was 4 and Tiffany was 2, and it was such an awesome book. I gained so much out of that. All I really remember from it is that how normal it is for them to fight 50% of the time. So I try to point out to Joe, like, he gets frustrated, like, I can't believe they're fighting again. And I like to point out when the kids are getting along and be like, hey, they're getting along now, just bringing it to your awareness, because it's so important. I don't mean to acknowledge it and reward them for getting along, the kids, because that's so inauthentic and so more conventional. But I like to point it out to Joe that, hey, they're not killing each other right now. Hey, let's celebrate it. And
that's when you're like, knock on wood, and the moment you say that, a few minutes later, it's been good. Now that the weather's getting nicer here in Washington, it's definitely been better. We've been spending more time outside and going to the park, and hopefully that'll help change it all around. Hopefully it doesn't rain.
Right, exactly. All right, well, do you have anything else that you have going on right now, Nicole, or is that it?
That is it, Dayna. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope some of these tools and tips of just inviting him in and seeing, I'm also really happy to chat with him anytime to offer some insight if I could ever help. Sometimes coming from somebody else that can be helpful to hear tools. But focusing on the needs under your husband's behavior is a very useful tip as well. So good luck to you guys.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, thank you guys for hanging in there for another call. I think what Nicole was dealing with is so normal. I know that I've dealt with it over the years myself, for sure, with Joe. I think that, and I hate to stereotype guys as being kind of late to the party with peaceful parenting, but I do think it's harder for a lot of dads. I think they were parented the most punitively. I think girls are definitely parented punitively as well, but guys really had it hard in my experience with a lot of the dads that I work with. A lot of more physical discipline, a lot of more intolerance to their needs. And I think it can be a really healing experience for fathers to parent this way, to be honest with you. So if you have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear from you. You're welcome to call into the show tonight as well. If you have any questions, send me a message, please. I am happy to answer. I have one more caller that should be coming in tonight, but if not, let's just chat. This radio show is a new venture for me, but it's proven to be so helpful to so many people, and I'm so grateful to be able to do it. I have been on different television shows, and I've been running parenting coaching, and I've done a lot of things, speaking at conferences all over the world, running my own conferences. But the whole idea of radio, of getting out there to people that may not have heard this philosophy, it's really great. And every Wednesday morning, I wake up and my focus is planning the show. Next week, I have an awesome woman on. Her gig is pretty much radical self-love. So it's about women, obviously, and focusing on healing ourselves as women and learning how to love ourselves. I find that parenting this way takes such self-confidence. Oh, it really does. And when you're raised to please other people and you're raised to obey, it really warps your self-worth. It took me so many years, and I'm still on that journey. I don't think you're ever done. You're never in the state of doneness as far as self-love goes. You're always, it kind of fluctuates, doesn't it? It's like you'll feel so great about yourself, and other times you'll just feel, you'll get kicked back. You'll take a back step and feel not so good about yourself as a parent or as a wife or as a friend. So I know the journey of self-confidence is so essential on this path. That's one thing that parents say to me all the time when they meet me. They say, how do you do it? And I could never do that. And, oh my gosh, I'd be so nervous that I couldn't educate my children well enough, or that I wouldn't have enough patience. And I think fear, it's all about fear, keeping people back. That if you have enough self-confidence, you can walk this path. But being looked at as like the weird one in town or the weird one in your group, it's hard sometimes. I've been doing this for a lot of years since the beginning, 15 years now that I've been parenting this way. And I'm pretty comfortable with wearing the weird hat, I guess. And people have really come around. When you're confident and you're not apologetic in what you're doing, people look up to it. I think getting comfortable with being kind of, I don't know how your experience was in high school, or junior high. But I was always I never necessarily wanted to be in the cool kids crowd. I would look at the cheerleaders and the jocks and all the parties, and I was I was like in the metalhead kind of freak. I hung out in the smoking lounge outside. That's how long ago I went to high school, graduated in 91, but we had smoking lounges. When I was 14 years old, out in the smoking lounge, we had written permission slips from our parents to smoke. So I had permission from the age of 14, my whole high school career, that I would go in the smoking lounge and hang out with all the other bad kids, all the other leather-wearing, Slayer, Metallica T-shirt-wearing kids, and we'd go out there and smoke more than cigarettes back in the day. And I'll tell you, you kind of learn to protect yourself through a tough kind of exterior. Now, that's always kind of been me authentically, I guess. I was raised by a father who was a race car driver, and I wanted to be a race car driver and a boxer, and I always loved hanging out with the guys and getting my hands dirty, and I was never a girly girl. So I always felt more comfortable in that group, but, becoming a mother and tapping into my femininity through birth, this whole other side of me was born. I never knew that I could tap into my feminine side, but giving birth, man, I'll tell you, that's one way to do it. You have a natural birth and bam, you reach the epitome of femininity. So I really tapped into that and connected with other women and started different support groups for breastfeeding and birth. And I really loved honoring that side of me while honoring that side of me that's more, wild and a little crazy. And that's always been part of me too. So I think my kids have an awesome balance between all of that and authentically are who they are. So I definitely think it's funny because I was chatting with somebody. Where was I yesterday? I was at Ivy's gymnastics class, and I'm hanging out with all the other moms, and I'm really enjoying connecting with other mothers, regardless of what their choices are for parenting and schooling. I think the older I get, the less judgmental I am. I think when I first became a mother and a breastfeeding advocate, I'd be so judgmental if I saw a mother feeding a baby formula, or if I'd hear a mother had an epidural. I would be so I didn't know it at the time I was being that way, but I was so judgmental, I can't believe that they're doing that. And I really would keep myself in a box with like-minded people, which on the one hand was empowering, and I liked it. But on the other hand, you really kind of close yourself off from potential relationships or helping or making a difference in people's lives. So as time has gone on, I've really learned everyone's doing the best they can with what they know at the time. And there's always a way to connect with somebody. There's always something you can focus on that you have in common with other people. So I'm kind of liking hanging out at Tiff's dance class, the other dance moms. I'm like the freak of the dance mom crew, I think. I just kind of sit there and, oh my gosh, I get so into what the kids are doing that I just talk about it. I'm like, look at what amazing dancers they are. And I think most of the other mothers are kind of more into maybe a gossipy mode, and I'm just all into the kids and celebrating them. And it kind of is inspiring to other people. The mothers are taking more interest. And I really enjoyed this rich, diverse community that I have, but now that I have teens, and older kids. So don't close off your potential relationships with people if they're parenting differently than you. You can always connect with other people. And I think that's such an important thing to model to your kids. I want my kids to have a rich pantry of friends with all different backgrounds. Of course, they're going to navigate to kids who share the same beliefs they do and so forth, the same, interest in different bands and things that we gravitated toward the same kind of group of kids with. But I don't need to keep myself in some unschooling community clique like I did for so long, like so many of you probably do. I mean, I've learned that I probably have a lot more in common with some other people than I do some people in the unschooling community. As wonderful as most people are, just because someone's unschooling does not mean that you're going to have anything in common with them. And a lot of times it's really kind of shocking how different you are than a lot of other unschoolers. So, immerse yourself in all different communities based on your interests. Model for your kids that, hey, unschooling and our type of parenting is one lifestyle choice, but we have so many other ways to connect. At this veg fest with the girls, there were so many cool people that were vegan. I can't imagine only hanging out with vegans. Hanging out with only unschoolers is kind of the same thing. You really want your world to be huge. You're not living this life of peaceful parenting partnership parenting dynamic, unschooling, to keep yourself in a tiny box of your ideals. You are making your world smaller. You want to give your kids as huge of a world as possible to learn and grow from, connect with other people from. That's such an important part of living this life. So I've come in, I mean, just even on this radio network alone, you see why there are so many interesting people I didn't know about. The whole prepper community is so interesting to me, and I'm inspired. I have my own little, what do they call it when you have all this food like on the shelves, man? See, I'm so out of the loop, but I love it. I'm like so inspired with, not because the big one's going to hit and I'm preparing for the end, but just the whole idea of preparation for the future, for making sure that you have food. I'm enjoying that. I have a couple shelves in my pantry now where I get a good backstock. You know, take a little bit from each community that you're interested in and leave the rest. You know, I don't believe in the whole doom and gloom mentality. I'm more of a love and peace, joy-based, you know, optimistic kind of mentality. However, I so appreciate the people that I've learned from on this network. You know, the Prepper Chick show is really great, and there's so many. I'm just fascinated with a lot of the things I'm listening to and learning. So I'm taking what works for my family, from what I'm learning, and I'm sure other people that are listening on the network are too. We can all benefit each other, and you don't have to keep yourself in some box. And I'm noticing that my kids, you know, Devin, for example, has always walked to the beat of his own drummer. For many years, he was interested in the whole steampunk community. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with that, you got to check it out. This is a whole amazing community in itself. So we went to a couple steampunk conventions. And I'll tell you, these people are crazy, but cool. You know, they really want to live in the Renaissance period, but with more modern technology. All right, well, I'm getting my last coaching call of the evening right now. Let's add this and let's take another call. Hello, Crystal? What? Let's see here. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for calling in tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. So tell me how many kids you have and what you're dealing with right now. How can I help you?
My kids are 13. My oldest is my son, 13, and I have two girls, 4 and 5. And we also have one on the way who's due in June.
Wow. So you have 4 kids here soon. Now keep in mind, Crystal, that we only have 5 minutes left of the show. So it's going to be kind of quick. So are you unschooling right now?
Yes, I'm trying to.
What are you dealing with that you're struggling with that I can help you with?
Right now we have a lot of, my daughter, she's 4. She's, really sensitive. So I'm just wondering how we can, meet everybody's needs in the household, because there's a lot of screaming going on, and I'm just trying to be present with her and try to be there for her and everything. It's just really hard with everybody in the household, meeting those needs of everybody. Yeah,
I can really relate. I have one child, Tiffany, who I write about often. She's 12 now, but is really always been the more highly sensitive, intense of all 4 kids. I used to say that 75% of my parenting time was spent with her. Would you say the same is true for your 4-year-old?
Yeah, we're trying to focus a lot of attention on her, and when we can't do that, it's really hard. So,
like, what's happening? Can you give me a situation that you dealt with, like today or yesterday, most recently, that you struggled with?
I'm gonna say yesterday we were in the car, and it was on the way home from the playground, and she started freaking out about her jacket being bundled up in the back of her car seat. So we tried to pull over and everything and get her situated before we ventured home, and it was really hard for her. She has a hard time expressing her feelings and everything, so it's just an automatic flare-up for her.
I think it's children like this that teach us the most. I learned so many qualities through parenting Tiffany. I learned patience, and it's really an opportunity for growth. Our kids are our greatest teachers. So I think just the advice to just slow down, and you know that when you try to speed kids like this up through something, that it always ends up taking 20 times longer and being more disastrous.
Yes.
So in the moment that they're voicing a need, to really just breathe and really meet that need. Whether you pull over, you take your time, And I always breathed before I took a deep breath and just focused, looked into her eyes and blocked everything else out and just helped her. And she needed to always know I was like completely present with her. And if she felt like I wasn't, she would always say, look at me when I'm talking to you. Look at me, please. Like she needed to like see. Your child said something like that to you around somebody who parented more conventionally. If your child said, look at me when I'm talking to you, can you imagine what that would trigger in most people?
Yeah.
How is your partner with her?
It's kind of tough because we have so many changes going on in the house, and right now we're trying to get on the same page, and I think that's really tough. Coming into a new home for him and just trying to basically try to parent together. He doesn't really know a whole lot about the unschooling. I guess I kind of came off as the wrong.
Well, Crystal, I'm sorry, but we have to finish the call. Why don't we continue this at the start of next week's show? I'll have you back on and we'll finish this, okay? Thank you for calling.